Today's episode is going to be a little bit of a digression from doing the actual building work, because the trip down to the woods yesterday revealed quite a lot of this timber that had died on the route, and although a lot of it is very fresh and good and could have been used in the building, there were a lot of points where there's wet rot where the branches come out. When you're putting a lot of work into a new building, you don't want to risk using timber that might have weak points in it. I might as well use wood that I'm pretty sure is good. And I need quite a lot of firewood. We have a fire in the household here probably about 7 or 8 months every year, or at least 8 months. So I need quite a large amount of firewood, so there's no point in getting too precious about these pieces of wood. And I thought that it gave me an opportunity to show a little bit of this equipment. I've got these nice 3-phase tools here, the zip saw and the splitter. I bought them both second hand. They weren't too expensive. The splitter was quite expensive because that's it's a really good, well-made tool. But I won't say too much because there's talk about it in the film. Anyway, this is mostly going to be just a kind of slow following of these, a bit of splitting and then some hewing.
I can't really use these because there's just a bit too much rot in them. I don't really need splitting these bits actually though. I have thought about putting a different blade on this, like an extra piece that puts on to split into 4 or something. But I've decided that it's not really worth the effort, because what's really good about this design is that it's very, very versatile. You can take something like this, which doesn't even fit in the blade, but I can cut it like that. I don't know if it will cut, that's actually very big, that one. And I wouldn't be able to do that if it had 4 blades, it just wouldn't work. So now that smaller piece fits in. double up so that you can split two at once. It's used a lot in this one was made in Sweden. It's like handmade, really. It's made in a mechanical workshop. And I like it because the hydraulics, they're very fast. Yeah, I like the hydraulics on this. It goes backwards and forwards quite fast, which is one of the minuses on some that have a bigger capacity. They are much slower. I don't know quite what the capacity of this is. I should think it's probably about 8 or 10 tons, something like that. Well, there's no point in guessing really, because it would just be wrong. So I don't know how much it is, but it does quite big pieces of wood. This, if it doesn't fit because it's too big, I don't think you'd be able to do that if I had 4 blades splitting. It kind of, if you have a 4 system, it's more critical what size pieces of wood you have. This is very, very versatile, so I haven't bothered with extra. I've just used the 1 blade. It's maybe a little bit slower for some pieces, but it means I can use all these different pieces of wood, which is what I want. So I'm very happy with it, this design. It's very good. It's made in a mechanical workshop in Sweden. I think it's handmade. It's got a very nice big tank for oil, and I think that's the secret of why it works well, because it's got a lot of oil, so it can move very fast. It doesn't get too hot. But the electrics get hot, so it needs a new switch really.
I was given this nice piece of cherry wood by a customer, and now I'm going to try and mill it with a chainsaw using a method that was described by a Russian YouTuber who's made a few films about his cabin in the woods and various other things that he's invented. He's, I think, an engineer. But I've also seen this method used by people in Indonesia who do freehand milling with chainsaws. This wood will need to be seasoned for a couple of years before I use it, probably for guitar making. So this is my go at trying this tip milling. As the saw gets deeper down into the wood, it's a little bit more difficult to feel what I'm cutting. There's so much friction coming from the sides. So at that point I switched to a different technique, but I actually regret that because it didn't cut as straight as the other way of doing it. So kudos to the system, it seems to work quite well. Now that I've processed the firewood from yesterday's work, I'm left with the 3 pieces of wood that I could conceivably use for this job. There was so much wood there in the woods yesterday, I just felt I had to bring it in while the trailer was there. This piece of timber here has a split underneath, so I've looked down its length to find. I'm just going to move the camera. There are several ways I could have this piece of wood, but this is a good way to have it, although perhaps it isn't. Perhaps it should really be curved that way, but it might not be. But there's a split
underneath, and I think that's a good place to have it underneath. So I'm going to use this as the top. That means I'm going to cut this down to, I think I'll cut it down to 12 centimetres. It's pretty simple. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. That's the centre. And then 12. So then I'll just mark up this with a spirit level. Might just do it by eye. No, I'll use spirit level. I'm going to take the bark off this piece of wood, but these edges are going to go off. I'm going to hew those off. So there's no point in barking this bit. This top bit needs to be barked. So now I'm just going to do the top bit. I had to go with the new band knife that I used. The one that I got in those new materials, but I don't like it. It's not very good having a straight one. It's good for making, I'm sure it's good for making bands for buckets, which is what it's made for. But I'm going to stick with this one, which has the curve both ways, because that's what this is made for, barking and forming pieces of timber. I'm going to go for 5 meters 20 because I don't like this last bit here. I was going to go for 550, but 520 is nice and traditional. There's a little bit of rot in this at this end actually. I think it's alright. I don't think it's only been dead. It's been dead for about 3 years, I think, this one. This is a piece I made a few years ago. It's been under the barn. I just got to take the end off it because it's been resting on the ground and it's got a little bit of rot in just where it was touching the ground. This piece is even short. I think it's 5 meters, so 5 meters, that one. You might have to do it 5 meters. There's a little bit of rot in it, but I mean, I think that probably stops quite quickly. So there's a crack, a split here. So I'll have that at the bottom. I don't want to be that big, do I? I think really I want it to be about 12, do I? $15, so that's 7.5. But I think that's too far over, so I'm going to use the middle of the tree anyway. I'm going to do the same thing at the other end. Get it right and mark it once. I think that's the good recipe. I get frustrated when I see other people marking several times to make the mark blacker or something. And then my chalk line will sit in that. I'll chalk that. But I'll just do this one outside edge first. and then I'll do that one because I'll move the dogs to the other side. I'll do one edge at a time. That's why it's quite good to have to use the spirit level, because you can put it back into level.
At this point in the film, we are firmly back on track and going to document blow for blow, building this Grindbygg right from the very trees and the woods to the finished product, perhaps one day. In the meantime, I think that probably it's appropriate for me to welcome you back again if you're not interested in hearing, because this is probably a good time to switch off and welcome back to the next film, which I hope will be focusing on designing the building. And for those of you with a more than average interest in hewing, I'll try and put an ad break in at this point so you can go and get yourself a drink and make yourself comfortable, and welcome back again to witness this piece of round timber turn into a piece of house timber.
Check that. Yeah, it's gone over a little bit. I'll just put a little wedge down the back there. There we go. That's perfect. So now I can use that just to check to see how much. Obviously, it should be thicker at the bottom, all the way down. Good. So it's about 6mm thicker at the bottom, which makes it easier to face to do the last kind of neat hewing. Because that goes a bit more across, it goes a bit more with the grain to face the last hewing. Looks quite good. Split. Okay. Not much to it really, that one. I might just take a bit of the bark off there because I can't see that clearly. I can see it down here, but I can't see it in the middle there. I didn't bother cutting these on this side because I thought there wasn't very much to take, but just here there's quite a lot. Juggling. Might just do it with this. Should be enough. Gonna have to do it more carefully with the camera this close because it makes me stop concentrating.